Hey guys, it's Sean, and I'm here to introduce you to a bonus episode of ReelBlend, an interview that we did with Blue Bayou director Justin Chon. It's one of those films that we've had on our radar and wanted to put a spotlight on ever since it got invited to the Cannes Film Festival, and that's something that we got a chance to talk to Justin about. If you're not familiar with the movie, it stars Alicia Vikander opposite the director, who's actually the leading man in it, and it details some of the struggles that people are going through with deportation and gets into a lot of the conversations about who is an immigrant and who is an actual American when you have a character who migrated over to the United States at a very early age and then has to go through these processes set up by our government to essentially prove that he belongs here. And it gets into a lot of the conversations about who belongs and who doesn't. Without me elaborating on the entire film, I'm just going to throw it right to our interview. So here is the ReelBlend conversation on behalf of Blue Bayou with Justin Chon. But I wanted to start with this, if we could. It's not a lot of opportunities to speak to somebody who is being told that their movie is going to have its world premiere at the Cannes Film Festival. So if you can take me back to that day when you got that call, what did that feel like? What was it like to be told that's where Blue Bayou was going to premiere?
The truth of it all is I was in prep for my most recent film, so I was numb because I was so tired. I was so tired. Also, the whole pandemic and, everything that just like, because I finished this film June of 2020. Oh, wow. I'd already I did a television project after, I worked on something else for almost a year. So I was excited, of course. I mean, Cannes is like the pinnacle. It's the creme de la creme of festivals and a place to showcase your work. So of course I was incredibly excited. But I think it took me going there to be like, oh, you know what? This is absolutely amazing. I think I was my head was so far up my ass that I think that I just wasn't like registering what an amazing thing that was happening at the moment. But once I like landed in the plane, I was flying in to I think Nice, and then you just see all the boats in the water and you're like, what is this? Because I'm from California, and like when you fly in, you see fishing boats and stuff, not like yachts and like just like right. Leisure, so
and
I
you're
was
not going as an attendee, like you're bringing your film, like
so it was incredible, man. It was absolutely mind-blowing. And then it's just like so classy too. It's just like a classy festival. They just are so organized and like have everything down, and you're just seeing famous people like everywhere. You're just like, what is going on right now? So no, it was an incredible experience.
Awesome. Thank you.
Justin, we spoke to you on the television day for this film, and one of the things we talked about a little bit, I wanted to dive into it more here because this is a filmmaking podcast, and please feel free to get as geeky as you want, but the 16 millimeter looks beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful to look at, and just the choice to shoot on 16 millimeter, what that gives you as a storyteller. And was it a challenge for you to even get 16 millimeter film stock to be able to shoot the movie, and kind of how that plays into kind of how precious all your scenes really are?
Yeah, and it didn't help that I acted in the film because, when you're shooting on film, you're trying to be economical. But, I think you try to do more rehearsals, ahead of time so that you don't burn too much film. But yeah, I will tell the story is, and this has to do with shooting on film, is we were shooting on these vintage 60s lenses, and we blew through the first 2 days, like killing it. Like we were like patting each other on the back, giving each other hugs. We're like, we're killing this film, like super overconfident. And, like film, you gotta send it off. You got to make sure it doesn't go through x-rays, and we're shooting New Orleans. So it has to get sent to Los Angeles to photocam, and it get developed and processed and uploaded. We get our first set of dailies back after our third day, and 70% of the footage is soft. And I'm like, what? oh, fuck. Like, what the hell? So like, we told the focus puller who I've worked with on 2 previous films, I was like, get up here. And we're like, I know it's not you. I've seen this isn't even that hard yet. I've seen you be in much more difficult situations, pulling like off of distance, like what the hell is going on? And we're trying to figure it out, but we just could not figure it out. But the next day we have to shoot, and we can't continue to shoot knowing that, like, you know, what is this? You can't all be soft.
Oh my gosh.
So we barely slept. We were trying to troubleshoot the problem, and we decided to just change out the lenses to more modern lenses. And what we ended up finding out from Panavision once they like were looking at everything, that because the camera was old, the gearing, because we were pulling so quickly, that it wasn't able to keep up with how we were pulling the lenses. So,
oh, wow.
So things were going out of or were going into focus, and it was not a good start to shoot.
but
you know, shooting on 16.
Did you have to reshoot that stuff?
No. Like I do a rolling edit, so I have my editor on set editing, and we're seeing if we could piece it all together. And we're like, okay, we have enough. We could salvage these days, because, you know, we started off slow. We didn't shoot like a lot of emotional stuff, and we were just getting our bearings. But man, you know, I was just like immediately kind of like, kind of regretting like shooting on 16, because I'm like, why? Like, because if you shoot on digital, you don't have those problems. You see what you're shooting right away. But 16, that sort of latency, that sort of delay of seeing what you're shooting is quite scary. But you know, the rest of the shoot was fine. But it was a freaky moment where I was like second guess myself. I'm like, should we just switch to digital for the rest of the shoot? So tempted, but I was like, no. If we're gonna go down, we're gonna go down in flames. You know, like it was like, let's just do it. We got to go.
Wow. Justin, I want to touch on the dialect, which I really think that you guys nailed. I have family from that area, so I've heard that dialect my entire life, and you guys absolutely nailed it. I want to talk about how you sort of found the specific dialect for that area of Louisiana, and then for someone like Alicia, who one has to then transfer to an American accent, and not just an American accent, but a specific American accent. How difficult was that process for her?
So for me, you know, I wrote the script, so I had been thinking about it for a bit, and you know, I did find a dialect coach, and we modeled it after 3 people from like around the St. Francisville and also Baton Rouge, and we got a different array, but we took qualities that we liked of each person. They were real people, not famous people, just like real ordinary people. And we broke down their accents, and then we made an amalgamation of something that we felt represented the socioeconomic class, you know, like also the region and the type of people he would, you know, take all that stuff into consideration to construct that accent. And then it was just after that, just a lot of practice and a lot of listening. For Alicia, you know, and then it was about taking it out into the world. You take it out into the world, and you just like constantly drill it and see if you can become one, you know, and fool people, you know, and if people think you're phony, then you're like, shit. But then that forces you to work harder. But Alicia, you know, I mean, she's an Oscar-winning actress. She did work with a dialect coach, and she came a bit early as well. And she met some real people and modeled it. But we had some discussions about the accent, you know, because I felt like mine was a little bit like, you know, a little bit more rugged, you know, a little bit more pronounced. And then hers is from, you know, would be a specific sort of, you know, socioeconomic class, and also region, and also, you know, cater a little bit more towards Caucasian, you know. Mine was from 2 African Americans and 1 Caucasian, you know. So, you know, these are the considerations we had, and we had to coordinate. Because when you put 2 accents together, and if it's not sort of like, doesn't make sense together, it sounds like cacophony. It sounds really bad, you know. So we had to really consider those things. And, you know, most people don't think about how much work even just that is, you know? Yeah.
I'm sorry if this is something that you've talked about at length in the run to this, but one thing I'm always going to remember from it is the design and the selection of Antonio's tattoos. And you know how I believe that they're very important to him as a character. But I was hoping that you could elaborate in the selection of what's showing and what is revealed and what you think they mean to him and what they meant to you.
Yeah, so basically, I just got tattooed for real for the film. So I had a tattoo that I got when I was 17, 18 that I'd wanted to get covered up for a long time. And then, this film came around and I was like, okay, like I'm getting older. I have a kid. I'm married. Like, gives a shit, what's on my body. Like, as long as it's not on my face, So I went and got, a cover up by this guy, Jeremy Swan. And basically it's an American traditional, which is exactly what he would have. And I just left the outline. So we outlined over it and I just left it so it looked like a half finished sort of dirty tattoo. And I left that. And then I also, Jesse tattoos my hand in the film and I got A plus J forever, which is Antonio plus Jesse for the number 4 Eva.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. What a keepsake.
Yeah, but my daughter's name is Ilani. My name is Justin. So I kind of planned it in that way. And my wife, who knows how to tattoo, she tattooed this on my hand in our hotel bathroom, like 2 days before the shoot.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
But it's all American traditional. It's all American traditional is to answer your question, is the style of tattoo that he has, which is ironic because he claims America on his body and America wants to deport him.
Right.
Justin, one of the things we talked about a little bit in the TV interview as well were the hairs in the gate for on the film, and then you can actually notice them in the film at some point. And specifically, there's a moment where because the 1:6:6 is such a great ratio and it's so tall. But I wanted to ask you about if you can elaborate on the hairs in the gate and kind of like why you, as a filmmaker, you would decide to keep those in. For me, as an audience member, like this feels almost docu-style. So like we're capturing real life, real people, and like it just happens to be the way it was filmed. This is how we got the footage. And I just wondered, is that the kind of the way you made it up to yourself? Like, okay, all right, there's hairs in the gate. Also tell our audience what that is too, because in the film you see some these little black frays that are on the frame and the bottom and top of the frame.
Yeah, it's basically when dust or hair or any foreign dust particles get into the behind the lens, right onto the where the film is being run through, and what you're supposed to do is between when you change a mag or a magazine or you change a lens or whatever, you use compressed air to like kind of blow out any stuff that's in there, and you check. That's what they mean by checking the gate, is you check the gate to make sure that like you don't have like some crazy thing that just messed up all the footage. As meticulous as you can be, but obviously this is a run and gun shoot, but as meticulous as you can be, sometimes you're going to get like little particles or dust or hair in there. I decided to keep it in, I did, between us, I did erase some like really bad ones, because, you can't have that where it's too distracting, like sometimes you have hair in the gate, like a dust particle that is actually moving too much and you can't, that's distracting. But if it's just like kind of stationary in there, the idea was, it's just like you're saying, the docu-ness of it and also the reality of it. I think it gives like this tactile element and reality to like this, almost like you're watching, this being filmed on like a camcorder or something, and it was something that was very important to me. And of course, like the studio and the producers are like, what is this shit in the, like these corners, and like, you're like, no, man, this is something we really want to keep. They're like, oh, well, this is going to have to be a discussion. But then ultimately I explained my part of it and I explained the reason for it artistically. Also, when you do QC, when you QC the film, quality control, there's these agencies that are outsourced to like look through the film and make sure everything is quality, right? And places like Netflix or whatever, they won't even take the film if it doesn't pass those requirements. So that was actually a big consideration. Is they're like, you can limit, like this can be a problem in terms of getting distribution or, all sorts of things. So do you really want to keep it? And I was like, you know what? No, like, yeah, we have to keep the hair in the gate. We have to keep those little phrases, and speaking of Cannes, they were like saying, yes, you kept the hair in the gate, like in, thick French accent, they're like, there's true cinema, and you're just like, yes, it is, motherfuckers, this shit is tight. But yeah, that was the decision to keep that in there.
It's really cool. I mean, for people who watch the film, just it to me, it was part of the immersion. Like it didn't distract at all. It just felt like I was watching real life, and you'll notice them in the corners. It's really cool. I'm so happy you kept those in. By the way, it's really cool.
Thank you.
Justin, I'm talking to you from Chicago, and whenever they shoot a film here, it's the third largest city in the country. The whole city goes nuts. It's like a huge deal when they shoot anything here, and they shoot stuff here all the time. I want to talk about what it was like shooting in a smaller community and how the people of the community responded. Was it a big deal to them? Was it all like, oh my God, like Hollywood's come to town? Because I'm from a small town, and I know that my town would have freaked out if they had shot a film there. So I'm just sort of curious what the people of the community were doing.
So, New Orleans is like another like film hub. Mm-hmm. And they've had enough filming down there that they don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. They're just it's kind of a nuisance. They're like, we don't care if you're filming, just like, get it done or like get out of here. Like, but the community is quite supportive there. Like they want to help out. They especially if it's like, about like certain topics like this and they know that you're trying to photograph the city in an authentic way. I think they become very supportive and New Orleans people in general are just kind. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of consideration given and locations, it's they're open to doing it and putting up their places for filming and so we didn't have a problem, in terms of that. Like I really got most of the locations that I wanted, but I will say this, a problem we had in locations is that, it's the temporal area, it's constantly underwater, and the bayou scenes, we lost like a day or two because we got flooded. We couldn't even get to the bayou because, it rained and the roads were underwater. So that cost us a few days. And that's like, on an indie film is like disastrous.
Justin, I think we're going to be running out of time, so I'll wrap you up on this one. I love that you mentioned earlier the challenge of, choosing to act in the film that you directed. And I love getting opinions from people who do try that going forward. What are some elements of both of them that you learned some things on in Blue Bayou that you hope to bring to maybe the next project to make you a better actor and make you a better director at the same time?
Yeah, I think the acting wise, is the preparation and having the proper amount of time. But, in film and television these days, you just don't have that luxury. But, maybe asking for that, really like fighting for that, I think is important. And in terms of directing, just continuing to grow and grow my style and finding things that are effective and work for me. Also, something that never goes out of style that I feel is a constant in filmmaking is like just not compromising. It's like, of course you have to compromise in terms of like budget or but when you're shooting, I do think, and I told this to my AD and she repeated it back later, that I said, you only get one chance, to film a movie in that moment, in that time. You have to be greedy. You cannot be worried about what everybody's thinking about you, or if you're like a piece of shit, or you just have to be greedy because you're not going to be able to go back and get those images, so, I've never, I've worked with all my crews, like, have loved working with me. And, especially even this crew that has told me like anytime they would work with me again in a heartbeat. So I'll obviously be respectful, but like, man, be greedy. Like, that's what I learned, is just be greedy and get, don't try to think you're a master and only be like, get the bare minimum. Be like, no, I know exactly how it's going to cut. I'm an auteur, and I know like I know exactly it's going to cut from this to this door opening and to this action. Dude, just be greedy, man. Just get it, dude, and just don't like be so hoity-toity about yourself and take yourself so seriously. Just know that maybe you don't know, and just be greedy on the day and get it. And even if you're tired.
Wow. Well, I know we have a lot of filmmakers who listen to this podcast, up and comers too, so hopefully they'll benefit a lot from that advice. So Justin, thank you so much for joining our show, and we'll send everybody to go check out Blue Bayou.
Thank you guys so much.
No problem.
Good to see you.
Have a great day.
Of course, we want to thank Justin so much for joining the show. Make sure you check out Blue Bayou once it is available in theaters around you, as long as you feel safe. I want to let you guys know that on this week's main show, we're also going to have a returning guest. Mike Flanagan and his producer, Trevor Macy, are coming back to ReelBlend to talk about their new Netflix series, Midnight Mass, which Jake and I have both managed to see. Cannot recommend it highly enough. And of course, it's just fun to have Flanagan back on the show. So when the main episode of ReelBlend drops this week, make sure you guys grab it right away. If you're watching us here on the YouTube channel, go down and hit subscribe. Turn on your notifications. We're putting up new episodes of ReelBlend every single week. We want to make sure that you guys get to see every single one of them. And as for all of your podcast needs, make sure that you subscribe to ReelBlend where you get podcasts. And we'll see you back here next week.